I, decided to move up, take this house, see what happened teaching wise. And at the time I was writing my dissertation. So I ended up going out of laziness to the local Ruthenian church because I didn't want to drive as far as I'd need to that day when it was snowy and I had my little tiny Nissan car, out to where the traditional Latin Mass was.
Now that's interesting because typically Eastern Catholics are in that same boat as more, I guess, the Latin Mass community, where more often than not, Eastern Catholics have to drive by 1, 2, 5, 10 Latin parishes or Roman Catholic parishes just to get to their home. And so there's that cost of belonging where you take it more personal, you take it more, I don't want to say seriously necessarily, but you make that experience on Sunday much more part of your life than just something culturally in passing, or as the temptation is with just, well, we go to the local church and that is what it is. And, you don't go too much beyond the surface of just, that basic simple observance and engagement. But there's that struggle and that longing for that personal identity. That's interesting that your Ruthenian parish was actually closer than your Latin Mass parish, because usually it's the other way around for a lot of Roman Catholics.
What's actually true is, although it's a different direction on the highway up on the mountain, there's a little Roman parish that's close to us, 7 minutes away. The Ruthenian church is about 12 minutes away down in town. It's the first church you go by if you go the other direction. So actually, you have to, in order to get to the Roman churches, you have to pass the Ruthenian church. So it ends up being the first thing. It is a very different experience. Being in old Rust Belt, Western Pennsylvania, right, is just a different beast, because you've got, leftovers. It's the leftovers of, Slavdom of the past. And, we're not a huge parish, but we're not small either. And so although we're going to probably face the demographic issues that every one of them are going to, it's different. It'll be a little bit delayed because we were a very sizable parish once upon a time. And I just fell in love. I always joke. I say it was like there was a Slavic part of my soul that just loved even the tone system of our liturgy. And, I think this is probably true for you Ukrainians as well. I mean, the problem is I've gone to some Ukrainian Catholic churches here in the Pittsburgh area, and I was never always convinced that they were doing the whole of your repertoire for what they were doing on Sunday.
And what's interesting is our churches were one officially up until I think 1924. But I mean, obviously there being, big cultural and geographic, tendencies depending on where in Slovakia or Western Ukraine or you would have immigrated from.
Yeah, and that was, in the end, it was this ill-fated Roman idea that you could combine those from Eastern Ukraine with then the kind of mixed diaspora that are the Rusins,
Now,
but there's a way that they could. It's just part of the very liturgical form. It's not the most technical chant, but I just sort of sank in, and I was at home there. And
it's interesting because I think Scott Hahn's first experience at we don't call it a mass, but at Catholic liturgy, at a Catholic mass, was actually at Byzantine Catholic Seminary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cause it's close enough to where he grew up in Ambridge. I think he's from up here. Yeah, that I don't know how he stumbled here, but he has told that story publicly and even to me once, in person, that this was the first liturgy he'd been to.